Sometimes, when the night feels a little too quiet and the weight of the day settles heavily on your shoulders, sleep can seem far away. If you are listening right now, I want you to know you are not alone. Many people, especially those who carry decades of memories, find that bedtime can stir up old thoughts, old worries, and restless feelings. And yet, this time together, right here, can become your gentle space, your safe corner, where you can simply breathe, relax, and let the past carry you into a softer place. If your eyes are heavy but your mind is busy, that's all right. I'll be here with you. This story was created just for you, to give you comfort, to stir a sense of nostalgia, and to remind you of the strength, the beauty, and the tender humanity that has always been part of your journey. And as we walk together through the memories of another time, through the voices of letters carried across oceans during the year 1970, you may find yourself slowly drifting toward rest, carried gently by the rhythm of words. You've lived through so much: the 60s with their music and marches, the 70s with their questions and discoveries, the 80s with their bright colors and changing world. You've seen moments that young people today only read about in history books. But for you, those days are not just facts. They are lived memories stored carefully in the heart. This story is about those memories, softened with time and retold like a gentle lullaby. And before we begin, I want to kindly invite you, if you enjoy these stories, if they help soothe your evenings, to subscribe to this channel. Think of it as joining a circle of friends who gather in the quiet of the night, each listening, each remembering, each finding peace in stories that feel familiar, like a warm blanket laid across your shoulders. And if you choose to leave a kind comment or share your own memories, you will be weaving your voice into this gentle tapestry we create together. So now, dear friend, let us begin our journey. Tonight, we will unfold the story of letters sent home from the Vietnam War in the year 1970. We will hear the steady scratch of pens across paper, the rustle of envelopes, and the tender words that connected sons, daughters, husbands, and wives across the wide ocean. The story is not about the battles or the noise, but about the quiet love that lived in ink, the hopes sealed in envelopes, and the warmth that traveled across continents to keep hearts close, even when bodies were far apart. Close your eyes if you wish, and picture yourself in those years, when the music of Simon and Garfunkel played softly on the radio, when families waited by the mailbox with anxious hope, when every letter carried a world inside it. Tonight, that world is yours once more. There is a quiet kind of magic that comes with nightfall, a hush that seems to settle over the world when the lamps are turned low and the windows grow dark. Tonight, as you rest your head on the pillow, let me take you back in time to a world of letters, candlelight, and whispered hopes. This is not a tale of hurried battles or loud speeches, but of something far gentler, the love and longing carried through handwritten words. A story for those who lived through the 1960s and 70s, or for anyone who wishes to step into that tender era again. The year is 1970. Across America, the rhythm of life feels both ordinary and heavy. Young men are overseas, far away in the humid jungles of Vietnam. At home, families wait for letters, clinging to envelopes as though they contain a piece of the heart itself. Radios hum with familiar voices. Songs from Simon and Garfunkel, Elvis Presley, and the Carpenters float softly through the evening air. The glow of the television, with its flickering black and white images, shows the news of the day. The war, the marches, the world changing faster than anyone can quite hold on to. Yet, in kitchens, living rooms, and quiet porches, there remains the steady pulse of everyday life. Children running barefoot through backyards, mothers tending gardens, fathers checking the fences before dusk. Our story begins in a small American farmhouse surrounded by fields of wheat and corn, their tall stalks swaying gently in the summer wind. The screen door creaks softly whenever it is pushed open, and the wooden porch holds the familiar marks of many boots and shoes passing across it. Inside, the home is filled with warm scents: apple pie cooling on the counter, coffee lingering from the afternoon pot, and the faint fragrance of lavender soap. On the kitchen table sits a small stack of envelopes tied with ribbon, waiting for hands to open them and eyes to read the words written within. Anna is the heart of this story. She is a young wife in her 20s, with soft brown hair pinned back neatly and hands that know both the tenderness of sewing and the strength of farm work. Each evening after the day's chores are done, she sits by the window with pen and paper. The glow of the lamp casts a warm circle of light across the table, and she begins to write. Her words are not grand or elaborate. They are simple, filled with everyday details. The flowers blooming by the fence, the neighbor's son learning to drive, the way the sun dipped golden behind the fields that night. Yet behind every word is the same message. I am thinking of you. I am waiting for you. Please come home safe. Her husband, Michael, is far away, stationed with his unit in the thick, humid jungles of Vietnam. His days are long, filled with both duty and longing. Yet when the mail arrives and he holds one of Anna's envelopes in his hands, the world softens. He opens it carefully, his rough fingers smoothing out the paper, and for a moment he is not a soldier in a distant land, but a husband, a son, a man tied by invisible threads to home. Her handwriting, with its loops and flourishes, feels like a lifeline. It is this rhythm, the writing, the waiting, the reading, that keeps both of them anchored. For Anna, each letter sent is like a prayer released into the world. For Michael, each letter received is like a candle lit in the darkness. Their story is not unusual. Across the country, thousands of families are living this same cycle. But within the quiet details, there is something universal, something deeply human. Imagine for a moment sitting at that farmhouse table with Anna. You hear the crickets outside, the ticking of the clock on the wall, the scratch of her pen as she writes. She pauses often, tapping the pen gently against her chin, searching for the right words. Sometimes she begins a sentence, then crosses it out, worried it may cause him too much sadness. Instead, she focuses on hope, on light, on the promise of what waits when he returns. She tells him about the roses she planted by the porch steps, about the calf born just last week, about the church picnic planned for Sunday. Ordinary things, yet within them lies a reminder of home's steady heartbeat. Far across the ocean, Michael reads those same words under the canvas of a tent lit dimly by lantern light. The jungle hums around him, frogs croaking, insects buzzing, distant sounds carried by the night. Yet as his eyes move across the page, the sounds blur and fade. In his mind, he sees the farmhouse, the fields, the familiar porch. He imagines Anna's hands folding the letter, slipping it into the envelope, sealing it with care. He imagines her lighting the lamp and looking out the window, wondering when he will read it. That image carries him through the long nights. And so, the setting of this story is not just one place. It is both the farmhouse in America and the humid barracks of Vietnam. It is the wide distance between, stitched together by envelopes, stamps, and ink. It is the sound of crickets in one land and the murmur of rain in another. It is love stretched thin, but never broken. For those listening now, this world may feel familiar. Perhaps you too once wrote a letter late at night or waited by the mailbox for one to arrive. Perhaps you remember the sound of a typewriter clacking, the scent of paper freshly pulled from an envelope. Maybe you recall the joy of seeing familiar handwriting on the page, knowing someone far away was thinking of you. These are the threads of memory we carry, and tonight they will guide us gently into sleep. So, let us linger here a little longer in the year 1970, where time feels both heavy and slow. The farmhouse window glows softly against the night. A young woman writes, her hands steady, her heart full. Far away, a soldier unfolds her letter, his tired eyes finding strength in her words. And in this quiet connection, a story begins. One not of war and noise, but of love, patience, and hope written in ink. Not every letter was written from faraway battlefields. Some were penned from home, carefully shaped by the steady hands of loved ones who longed to bridge the distance. In those days, words carried the weight of a heartbeat. Each sentence folded gently into an envelope sealed with hope and carried by the slow rhythm of the postal service. Every trip to the mailbox held the possibility of connection, of reassurance, of love, traveling across oceans in the quiet form of paper and ink. A young wife, living in a small town in Ohio, sits by the window late in the evening. The soft hum of cicadas drifts through the summer air. She has just lit a single lamp, its glow casting a warm circle upon her writing desk. Beside her sits a photograph of her husband in uniform, tucked into a simple wooden frame. She takes a deep breath, dips her pen into ink, and begins to write. Dearest love. The words flow, steady and careful. She writes the garden, of the tomatoes ripening on the vine, of neighbors stopping by to check in. She writes of her prayers at church, of the way the choir sang his favorite hymn just the past Sunday. And most of all, she writes of her longing that he come home safe, that the days apart pass quickly, that they may once again sit together on the porch as the sun sinks low across the fields. Each word she places on the page becomes a quiet tether between two worlds. She pauses often, letting her thoughts drift to him. What is he doing at this very moment? Is he resting under the stars, or is he walking through thick jungle shadows? Is he humming a familiar tune to keep the fear away? She whispers a prayer as she seals the envelope, presses it against her lips, and lays it gently on the table, ready to be sent the next morning. Elsewhere, a child curls up in bed with a notebook and pencil, determined to write to her older brother who has gone away. She has only just learned to spell, and her words are clumsy but filled with love. She tells him about her new puppy, about the teacher who gave her a gold star, about how she looks at his baseball glove and imagines him catching fly balls once again. The innocence of her letter, full of little scribbles and uneven lines, carries a lightness that her parents treasure. They tuck the letter into an envelope, smiling through tears, knowing that when their son opens it, he will feel the warmth of home in a way no news report or official notice could ever bring. Across the nation, the ritual repeats. Mailboxes open with creaks, envelopes are slipped into waiting hands, families gather together to read aloud, their voices trembling, their hearts steadying with every phrase. For those who wrote, the act itself was healing, the chance to pour out thoughts onto paper, to keep hope alive by shaping it into sentences. For those who received, the letters were lifelines, fragile but unbreakable, carrying across the impossible distance a reminder of love, faith, and belonging. And through these exchanges, something remarkable happened. Even though oceans divided families, the simple act of writing and reading kept hearts together. In living rooms, kitchens, and on quiet porches, people held envelopes close to their chests, letting the paper rest against their hearts as though it could somehow shorten the miles. Soldiers carried these letters in their pockets, tucked carefully into helmets or folded neatly into Bible pages, treasures more valuable than gold. They became shields against loneliness, whispers of strength in the darkest hours, and lullabies to weary souls. If you close your eyes now, perhaps you can picture it. The hush of an evening in 1970, the rustle of paper unfolding, the sound of a pen scratching gently across a page. Perhaps you can smell the faint trace of ink, the warmth of a lamp lighting up a small corner of a room, the steady rhythm of someone writing words of love. And perhaps, just perhaps, you can feel the way those letters carried not only messages, but also pieces of the heart itself, sealed with care, waiting to travel across time and space, across distance and longing, until they reached the hands that needed them most. The year is 1970, and somewhere in the thick, humid air of Vietnam, a young soldier named Daniel sits beneath the dim glow of a lantern. Around him, the jungle hums with restless sounds, crickets, frogs, the distant calls of night birds. His uniform is dusty, his boots worn, and yet his hands are gentle as he unfolds a piece of paper, carefully smoothing the edges. It is a letter from home, written in the familiar, flowing script of his wife, Margaret. He reads slowly, savoring each word, almost mouthing them aloud. She tells him of the tomatoes ripening on the vine, of the kindness of neighbors, of the small joys that keep her days moving forward. She writes of their daughter, Lily, who just learned to ride her bicycle without training wheels. She fell once, scraped her knee, but got back up and pedaled again, her laughter ringing down the quiet street. Daniel smiles faintly, the ache in his chest easing just a little as he imagines it. He can almost hear Lily's laughter, almost see the sun catching her hair as she pedals furiously across the sidewalk. He closes his eyes for a moment, letting the sounds of the jungle fade, replaced by the imagined chorus of crickets back home, the rustle of leaves in the maple trees lining their yard. For a brief while, the war disappears. In its place is a kitchen with warm lamplight, a front porch with peeling paint, a dog barking lazily at passing cars. The letter becomes his anchor, pulling him away from fear and into love's embrace. When he finally picks up his pen, he takes his time. He knows each word will travel slowly, perhaps taking weeks to reach Margaret's hands. He knows she will read every line again and again, holding the paper as if it were his hand. And so he writes with care. He tells her of the stars above the jungle, how sometimes they shine so brightly they remind him of home. He writes of the men beside him, how they share stories of their families, how laughter sometimes breaks through even the hardest days. He does not tell her of danger, nor of fear, nor of the endless waiting that shadows each moment. Instead, he offers her steadiness, comfort, a promise in ink that he is holding on, that her love is what carries him through. Tell Lily, he writes, that I am so proud of her. Tell her to keep writing, to keep laughing, because her laughter is my favorite sound in the whole world. He pauses, his throat tight, then adds, and tell her that when I come home, I'll teach her to ride even faster, maybe all the way to the park and back. He signs it simply, all my love forever, Daniel. Back in Ohio, Margaret waits. Each trip to the mailbox fills her heart with both hope and fear. She lingers before opening each envelope, holding it close as if she can already feel his presence inside. When Daniel's letter arrives, she reads it slowly, sometimes aloud to Lily, sometimes to herself in the stillness of night. She touches the words as though they could bridge the miles, as though the ink itself carries his breath, his warmth. She writes back immediately, her pen gliding with quiet determination. She tells him that Lily is practicing each day, that their dog sits faithfully by the porch as if waiting for him, that the tomatoes are finally ripe enough for canning. She tells him how she misses the way he whistles when he works in the shed, how the house feels too quiet without him, how she looks at the stars each night and wonders if he sees the same ones. And then she tells him something she has not shared with anyone else, how she sometimes dreams of him walking through the front door, his arms open, his smile steady, and how she wakes with both tears and joy. These letters, traveling back and forth across oceans, become their lifeline. Margaret keeps his folded neatly in a box, tied with a ribbon. Daniel keeps hers tucked inside the pocket of his uniform, close to his heart. Each word, each page carries more than sentences. It carries hope, memory, the promise of reunion. For Lily, the letters mean something different. She cannot always understand the words, but she knows they are important. She traces her father's handwriting with her finger, marveling at the curves and lines. Sometimes she draws pictures to send back, stick figures of the family together, a sketch of her bicycle, a smiling sun. She asks her mother, "Will Daddy see this? Will he keep it with him?" And Margaret always answers, "Yes, sweetheart. He will keep it safe. He will keep it close." And he does. In the jungle, when nights are long and fear presses heavily, Daniel pulls out Lily's drawings. He smiles at the uneven lines, at the way her son always has a face, at the little house with a crooked chimney. And for a while, he is no longer a soldier. He is simply a father, looking at his daughter's art, dreaming of the day he can come home and place her drawings on the refrigerator door where they belong. The letters continue, week by week, month by month, each one carrying pieces of their hearts across the distance. They do not know how long it will be, nor what the future holds, but in those pages lies the one thing stronger than distance, stronger than war: love. As autumn of 1970 arrives, the rhythm of the letters has become a heartbeat for both Daniel and Margaret. Each week that passes without a letter feels long, stretched thin with worry. But when the envelopes do arrive, when the handwriting is seen again, it is as though the world steadies for a moment. In Daniel's pocket, folded against his chest, Margaret's words become a talisman. In Margaret's drawer, tied with a ribbon, Daniel's words become a comfort she returns to on nights when the silence feels too deep. The letters are not only news, they are confessions, prayers, and promises written in ink. Daniel writes of the stars, of how he sometimes hums their favorite song, Bridge Over Troubled Water, while lying awake, listening to the jungle. Margaret writes of the neighbors, of the harvest, of Lily's excitement at Halloween costumes, and of the church choir practicing hymns that always make her think of him. Both choose their words carefully, each determined to bring light instead of fear, warmth instead of worry. Their letters are blankets of reassurance, wrapped across distance. One evening, under the pale glow of a half moon, Daniel sits with a small group of fellow soldiers. They each hold their own letters, unfolding them slowly, reading them aloud in quiet voices. One young man reads his mother's recipe for cornbread, written in her shaky handwriting. Another reads a letter from his sweetheart, full of hopes about a wedding someday. And Daniel, though shy, shares Margaret's description of Lily riding her bicycle in circles, singing as she pedals. Laughter ripples through the group, a sound that feels rare and precious. In that moment, letters are not just personal treasures, they are shared reminders of home, of ordinary life, of the things that make every hardship bearable. Daniel keeps Lily's drawing of a sun tucked in the brim of his cap. Sometimes, when the days are long and the path uncertain, he taps the paper gently, as if drawing strength from it. He thinks of her laughter, of Margaret's quiet strength, and he reminds himself that every step forward is a step closer to returning to them. Meanwhile, back in Ohio, Margaret discovers that writing has become more than duty. It has become ritual, a way of keeping her own courage alive. At night, after Lily has gone to bed, she sits at her desk and lets the words pour onto the page. She tells Daniel of the sound of leaves crunching underfoot, of the way the air smells crisp with autumn. She shares small details, pumpkins lined up on porches, the laughter of children in costumes, the way their dog curls up at the foot of the bed. Each detail is a thread, weaving together the fabric of normal life, sending him reminders that the world they love is waiting, unchanged in its quiet beauty. Some nights, she admits her fears, but gently. "The nights feel long without you," she writes, "but I close my eyes and imagine you beside me, and it helps me rest." She does not speak of the news on the television, nor the headlines that make her heart tighten. Instead, she offers him hope, because she knows that hope is the strongest gift she can send. As the weeks turn into months, Daniel and Margaret begin to find new ways to feel close. They share memories. Daniel writes of the day Lily was born, of the way Margaret smiled through her tears, of the first time he held his daughter. Margaret writes of the summer evenings they spent sitting on the porch swing, Daniel's arm draped around her shoulders as they watched fireflies blink in the yard. These shared recollections become bridges across time, reminders that no matter how far apart they are now, they have built a life together too strong to be broken. Daniel sometimes sketches in the margins of his letters. A simple flower, a star, a clumsy attempt at drawing the family dog. Margaret treasures these sketches, keeping them safe in the ribbon-tied bundle. She shows them to Lily, who giggles at her father's uneven lines. "Daddy's not a very good artist," she laughs, "but I love it." The sound of her laughter is exactly what Daniel had hoped for when he drew those small doodles. One evening, after a long day, Margaret sits with Lily at the kitchen table. They are baking cookies, the smell of sugar and butter filling the house. "Do you think Daddy can smell this where he is?" Lily asks. Margaret smiles softly. "Maybe not, sweetheart," she answers, "but when he reads our letter about it, he'll imagine it. And sometimes imagination is enough." That night, Lily writes a short letter all on her own. "Dear Daddy, we made cookies tonight. I saved one for you. I hope you come home soon. Love, Lily." The cookie will never reach him, of course, but the letter will, and that is enough. When Daniel reads Lily's words weeks later, his eyes sting. He holds the paper close, as if it could carry the taste, the smell, the warmth of home. He knows he cannot eat the cookie, but the thought of it, the thought that they saved one just for him, fills him with a sweetness no treat could ever match. In the quiet moments between duties, Daniel dreams of returning home. He pictures walking up the front steps, the creak of the wooden porch, the sound of Margaret's voice calling his name. He imagines Lily running toward him, her arms open, the sun shining behind her. He writes of these dreams in his letters, not as promises, but as hopes. And Margaret, when she reads them, clings to them like lifelines, letting them soothe her during the long nights. The letters become more than ink on paper. They become love itself, living, breathing, enduring. They are proof that distance cannot sever bonds, that courage can be shared across miles, that even in the hardest times, hope can be kept alive through words. Winter settles gently over Ohio in late 1970, the fields lying bare beneath soft layers of frost. The world feels quieter, as though wrapped in a blanket of stillness. Margaret lights a small lamp on her writing desk, the same lamp that has illuminated so many letters, and she waits for Lily to drift into sleep. The house is hushed now, the only sound the steady ticking of the clock on the wall. She opens her box of letters, the ribbon slightly frayed from use, and smooths the familiar envelopes once again. These letters have carried her through the passing seasons, each one a gift of hope. But tonight, as she lifts the newest envelope from the stack, something feels different. She notices the date, notices the boldness in Daniel's handwriting. Her hands tremble slightly as she unfolds the paper, and then as her eyes travel across the words, her breath catches. Daniel has written that his unit will soon return home. No exact day is certain yet, but the word is clear: homecoming. For a moment, Margaret presses the letter to her chest, her heart pounding in the stillness. Tears well in her eyes, but they are not the heavy tears of worry. They are lighter, brighter, born of relief. She whispers aloud, though no one else is in the room, "He's coming home." The words feel like a prayer, like a song, like a dream given voice. She repeats them softly, letting them settle into her heart, calming her spirit as though each repetition makes them more real. The next morning, she shares the news with Lily. The little girl's eyes widen, her mouth forming a perfect circle of joy. "Daddy's coming home?" she asks, almost in disbelief. Margaret nods, her smile trembling but strong. Lily claps her hands together, running through the kitchen, singing the words over and over. "Daddy's coming home! Daddy's coming home!" The dog barks, tail wagging as if even he understands. For the first time in months, laughter fills the house without effort. It flows easily, naturally, as though the walls themselves sigh with relief. Margaret writes back immediately, her pen flying across the page. She tells Daniel that his words are the best Christmas gift she could have imagined. She writes that the whole town will welcome him, that Lily has already begun making drawings for the day he walks through the door. She adds that she, too, has been dreaming of his return. Dreams of sitting side by side on the porch swing, of sharing supper together, of hearing his voice not through paper, but in the living air. Across the ocean, in a tent beneath the thick canopy of the Vietnamese jungle, Daniel reads her reply. His own hands tremble now, but for a different reason. Relief courses through him, mingled with anticipation. He looks at her words, the way she underlined home, and he closes his eyes to imagine it. He sees Margaret's smile, Lily's eager face, the front steps of their house, waiting for his boots to climb them once again. The war is not yet over, but for the first time he can see beyond it clearly. He can see home. He writes again that night, though the words come slowly. He tells Margaret of his gratitude, of the way her letters have been his anchor, his lantern in the dark. He tells Lily that he dreams of teaching her to ride her bicycle all the way to the park, and that he cannot wait to taste the cookies she promised him in her last note. And then he adds something he has never dared write before. "Soon, my love, soon we will be together. And when that day comes, I will never take a single moment for granted." In Ohio, the days stretch forward, each one bringing Margaret and Lily closer to reunion. Margaret begins to prepare quietly, not in grand gestures, but in simple acts. She washes Daniel's old jacket and hangs it in the closet, ready for his return. She plants bulbs in the frozen soil, knowing they will bloom in spring, a sign of new beginnings. She bakes bread, letting the familiar scent fill the house, imagining the smile on Daniel's face when he sits once more at the table. Every task becomes a meditation, a way of softening the edges of waiting. At night, when sleep feels elusive, she opens Daniel's letters and reads them aloud softly, almost like prayers. The sound of his words, spoken in her own voice, soothes her heart. Lily sometimes asks her to read the letters too, and they curl up together on the sofa, listening to Daniel's words as though he is already in the room. These moments become lullabies, calming them both as they drift into slumber with smiles on their faces. And as the weeks pass, the distance feels shorter. Letters still carry the space between them, but now the words are lighter, threaded with anticipation rather than fear. The waiting is not easy, but it has changed shape. It is no longer an endless ache. It is a quiet countdown, a gentle anticipation that carries Margaret, Lily, and Daniel forward together, bound by the promise of reunion. In the stillness of night, when Margaret leans her head against the window and looks at the winter stars, She imagines Daniel looking at the very same sky. She whispers softly, "Soon," and lets the word hang in the frosty air, a promise carried across the miles. And in that whisper lies the calm that will carry her into sleep, peaceful, steady, and full of hope. The days that followed, in both America and the faraway fields of Vietnam, passed with the kind of slowness that only time itself can carve. For Michael, each morning in the barracks carried the soft thrum of routine, folding his blanket neatly, polishing his boots, and stepping outside into the hazy dawn. For Anna, the mornings were marked by the quiet whistle of the kettle on the stove, the sunlight slipping gently across the curtains, and the lingering thought that somewhere across the globe, her husband might be waking under a completely different sky. Her letters, written at the oak table in the farmhouse kitchen, had become almost like prayers on paper. She wrote of small things, of how the tomatoes in the garden had ripened late that summer, of the neighbor's dog who barked at the postman, of her younger sister practicing the piano long into the evening. Every little detail, she thought, could remind Michael of home. She always ended the letters with a soft phrase, "Come home safe, my love." Michael, in return, found himself carrying her words like a shield. On nights when the jungle seemed to breathe heavy with danger, or when the sound of helicopters roared overhead, he would take her letter from his pocket and trace the loops of her handwriting with his finger. The scent of paper, faintly touched with lavender, made the world feel less cruel. There was one evening, deep in the rainy season, when Michael sat beneath the canvas of a makeshift tent, listening to the steady rhythm of raindrops. The men around him dozed in weary silence. He pulled out Anna's most recent letter, the ink slightly smudged from her hurried hand, and read the lines again and again. She had written about a dream she had in which he returned home on a spring morning, walking up the dirt path toward the farmhouse, smiling as though no time had passed. The image filled his heart so completely that for a moment the sounds of the jungle faded away. He could almost feel the earth of that path beneath his boots. Meanwhile, in America, Anna sometimes stood by the window at dusk, staring across the fields toward the horizon. She had taken to lighting a small candle every evening. She said it was her way of guiding him home, even if he couldn't see it. The tiny flame flickered in the quiet farmhouse, a symbol of both hope and longing. By the turn of the year, the letters had piled high. Dozens of envelopes tied with ribbon lay in a small wooden box Anna kept by her bedside. Each letter held a moment of courage, of weariness, of longing. Sometimes she would read them aloud softly to herself before sleep, her voice barely above a whisper, as though Michael could hear her across the distance. And in a way, perhaps he did. The gentle climax of their story was not one of dramatic reunion under fireworks or sudden joyful surprises, but rather the quiet, enduring strength of love stretched across oceans. It was found in the simple rhythm of waiting and writing, of reading and replying, of holding on through the slow passage of days. One evening, Anna received a letter unlike the others. In it, Michael wrote of sitting with a fellow soldier who was weary and fearful. Michael had shared Anna's words with him, lines about home, about resilience, about remembering the smell of fresh-cut hay and the laughter of family. The soldier, Michael explained, had smiled for the first time in many weeks. Your words, my dearest, are not just mine to keep, Michael wrote. They are light for others as well. Anna pressed that letter to her chest and wept softly, though her tears were not only of sorrow, they were tears of pride, of knowing that their love had reached further than either of them could have imagined. As winter gave way to spring, the tone of Michael's letters began to shift. There was still caution in his words, but also a fragile hope. He wrote of rumors that his unit might be rotated out, that perhaps by the year's end he would be on a plane bound for home. Anna clung to those hints of promise, weaving them into her prayers at night. And so the story wound itself toward a gentle close. Not an end, but a moment of calm. Michael remained far away, and Anna kept her candle burning in the window each evening. Yet within those letters they found one another again and again, as though each word bridged the distance in an unbroken thread. For those listening now, as your eyelids grow heavy, think of this. Love is not measured only in grand gestures or in the sudden sweep of drama. Often it is found in the small, steady acts of care, the letter written by lamplight, the envelope carried across miles, the prayer whispered at night. It is in these quiet moments that love endures, softer than the rain, stronger than the passing years. And perhaps tonight, as you drift into sleep, you too can imagine receiving a letter, not from war, not from a faraway place, but from your own heart. A letter reminding you that you have been loved, that you have given love, that every memory you hold is still alive within you. Let the thought comfort you as the story winds gently into silence. And so, dear listener, as we come to the close of this story, let your heart rest with the knowledge that love, once written down, never truly fades. The letters between Michael and Anna, simple pieces of paper carrying words of longing and hope, became threads strong enough to stretch across oceans, through jungles, and over the passage of years. Each line was a reminder that even in the most uncertain times, someone was waiting, believing, and holding on. For you listening now in the quiet of your room, perhaps you remember your own letters, the folded notes passed in high school hallways, the envelopes carefully addressed in neat handwriting, the telegrams or postcards that once arrived with a stamp and a promise. Or maybe you recall the voice of a loved one calling long distance from a payphone, the words faint but treasured. Those memories are part of the fabric of who you are, and they are here to comfort you tonight. As you lie back, let the stillness surround you. Imagine a candle flickering gently in a farmhouse window, its light steady and warm. That candle is for you too, a signal that you are not alone, that across time and space the love you've shared still glows. Think of the letters you might have written or the ones you once received, and let those gentle echoes remind you of a world where you were cherished and where you gave love freely in return. The story does not need a final resolution because life itself rarely offers one. Instead, it offers moments, small, fleeting, but powerful enough to last a lifetime. Tonight is one of those moments. You are here, safe, listening, remembering. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to close your eyes and let your breathing slow. So as you drift into sleep, may you carry with you the calm of Anna's steady candlelight and Michael's quiet strength. May the sound of the rain on canvas and the soft rustle of envelopes remind you that peace can be found even in the simplest of things. And may tomorrow greet you with gentleness, just as tonight guides you into rest. Before we say goodnight, I want to thank you for joining this story. If you found comfort here, I warmly invite you to subscribe to the channel so that whenever sleep feels far away, you'll know there's a place where gentle voices and nostalgic tales will be waiting for you. And if you'd like, share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us what memories you'd like to revisit or what kind of story you'd like to hear next time. Perhaps a memory of music, of summer evenings, or of quiet family dinners. For now, my friend, it is time to let go of the day. Rest your eyes, rest your mind, and know that you are deeply cared for. From my heart to yours, I wish you a peaceful night and the sweetest of dreams. Good night. you.